Hi, my name is Lauren Hill, and I'm 28 years old. I'm a combat medic in the United States Army. That means I help save soldiers who get hurt in battle. But for a long time, my own family didn't think what I did mattered. They laughed at my uniform. They ignored my medals. They told me I was a disgrace. They said I was the failure in a family full of doctors, lawyers, and professors. I grew up in Hartsville, Virginia, in a big white house with neat windows and clean floors. My father, John Hill, was a well-known economics professor at Fairview College, and my mother, Linda, was a scientist at a research center called Oak Ridge Labs. My older brother, Adam, followed in their footsteps. He got straight A's, went to a big law school, and joined a famous firm in New York. People in town looked up to the Hill family. Everyone was proud of how smart we were, except when it came to me. Ever since I was young, my parents planned for me to become a doctor. They sent me to science camps every summer, paid for expensive tutors, and hung posters of the human body in my room instead of fun pictures or decorations. I didn't have music or movie stars on my wall. I had bones, muscles, and charts. But when I was 9 years old, something else caught my heart. My grandfather, my dad's dad, had once been a combat medic in World War II. My parents didn't like to talk about it. They preferred to say he worked in a hospital later in life. But when I was alone with him, he told me stories that stayed with me forever. I wasn't saving the world in a big fancy lab, Lauren, he told me once, his voice soft. I was saving it one soldier at a time in the mud with my hands. One day, he showed me his old medic badge. It was small and worn, but I thought it was the most powerful thing I had ever seen. That little badge meant more to me than all the trophies in our living room. In high school, I was a decent student. I got mostly B-plus grades, not perfect but good. I did great in sports, especially track and swimming. My teachers liked me. My guidance counselor said I could go to a good college, not one of the Ivy League schools, maybe, but a solid one. But to my parents, good wasn't enough. Your brother had perfect SAT scores, my mom would say again and again. He could go anywhere. When it was time to apply to college, I did what they asked. I filled out forms for all the schools they chose. Slowly, the rejection letters came. I got waitlisted at a few and accepted at some smaller schools. The day I told my parents, my dad let out a long sigh and said, "Well, we'll make it work. You'll go to a state school and maybe transfer somewhere better." I could feel the disappointment in the room like a heavy blanket. That spring, a military recruiter came to our school. She set up a small table near the cafeteria. Most students walked right past. But I stopped. Her name was Sergeant Amanda Brooks, and she spoke with pride and passion about what it meant to serve your country, especially in a medical role. "We don't just patch people up," she said. "We save lives. We make a difference." Something inside me lit up. For the first time, I saw a future that made sense. A future I wanted, not one that was handed to me. I went home and thought about it for weeks. After one hard semester at the state university my parents had picked, I made up my mind. I was going to join the Army as a combat medic. The night I told them, we were sitting at the dinner table. I still remember the way my dad looked at me like I had said something disgusting. "The military," he said sharply, almost choking on his drink. "Lauren, the military is for people who have no other options. Is that what you think of yourself?" My mom put her head in her hands. "Where did we go wrong?" she whispered. But it was my brother, Adam, who cut me the deepest. He actually laughed. "Really?" he said. "You? Playing soldier? Come on. They'll just put you in some office handing out aspirin. This isn't a movie." "I'm going to be a combat medic," I said, trying to stay strong. My voice shook, but I meant every word. "Your grandfather did something respectable after the war," my dad snapped. "He didn't waste his potential." That night, I sat on my bed staring at two pieces of paper, my acceptance letter from college and my Army enlistment form. By morning, I had made my choice. 2 weeks later, I was on a bus to basic training. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. But their voices followed me. "You'll regret this. You're throwing your life away. You're not strong enough." They were wrong. And I was about to prove it. Basic training was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. It wasn't just about push-ups or running for miles. It was about being tested physically, mentally, and emotionally. But for the first time ever, I wasn't being compared to my brother or expected to be perfect. No one cared about my test scores or my family name. They only cared if I could work hard, follow orders, and push through pain. At first, I struggled. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. But I didn't give up. And that made a difference. I learned how to move in a group, how to carry heavy gear, how to stay calm even when I wanted to cry. I woke up before the sun, ate fast, ran harder than I thought I could, and by the end, I had made it. I graduated basic training near the top of my group. Next came combat medic training. That was where I found my purpose. We practiced giving IVs in full protective gear. We applied tourniquets in the dark. We had to treat wounded soldiers while fake gunfire exploded around us. It was scary, fast, and real. The instructors were strict, but they noticed when you gave your best. One of them pulled me aside after a hard test. "You've got the hands and the heart for this, Hill," he said. "You're going to make a damn good medic." When I came home that Christmas, I wore my uniform with pride. My ribbons were real. My training was real. My back was straight. I hoped, just a little, that my family might see me differently. But nothing had changed. "When are you going to stop playing dress up?" my mother asked as we cooked in the kitchen. "The uniform looks cute," Adam smirked. "But you're probably just handing out Band-Aids, right?" They didn't ask about my training. They didn't ask what I'd learned. My father changed the subject every time I brought up the Army. I realized something that holiday. I could win medals. I could graduate with honors. But to them, it would never matter. So, I stopped trying to impress them. I focused on what I was good at, saving lives. When my training ended, I was assigned to the 12th Mountain Division, a group known for tough missions. Not long after that, I got orders. I was being sent to Afghanistan. I called home the night before deployment. I thought maybe they'd say something kind. Something like, "Stay safe," or "We're proud of you." Instead, my mom just said, "Well, I guess that was going to happen eventually with the path you chose." "Just keep your head down," my dad added. "Don't try to be a hero." No care packages came while I was gone. No letters. No emails, except for 1 or 2 polite messages now and then. But I found something better than their approval. I found my real family in my squad. We shared stories late at night while guarding the base. We celebrated birthdays with little cakes made from old food packets. We protected each other on every mission. We were more than just soldiers. We were brothers and sisters. My squad leader, Sergeant Lisa Ray, became the kind of mentor I never had at home. She pushed me hard, but she always told me when I did well. She reminded me that strength wasn't about being loud. It was about showing up every day, even when it was hard. 3 months into the deployment, everything changed. Our convoy was driving through a dusty road in a dangerous area. The first vehicle hit a bomb. It exploded with a force I'll never forget. The truck flipped. Smoke poured into the air. 2 soldiers were trapped inside. While everyone was ducking for cover, I ran toward the fire. Bullets were flying. I didn't think. I just ran. I dragged Sergeant Ryan Cooper out of the wreckage. His leg was torn open, bleeding fast. I could see the artery had been hit. If I didn't stop it, he would die in minutes. "Stay with me, Cooper," I shouted, putting pressure on the wound. I wrapped a tourniquet around his thigh and started fluids while lying flat on the ground. It took the helicopter 14 minutes to get there. For those 14 minutes, I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I fought for his life with everything I had. He survived. When we got back, Captain David Martin, who saw everything, came up to me. "You've got ice in your veins, Hill," he said. "You saved his life." Word spread. I was given the Army Commendation Medal with a special device for bravery. I called home that night, full of pride, ready to share the news. "That's nice," my mom said. "Did you hear? Adam just made junior partner at his firm." My heart sank. They didn't ask how I was. They didn't even ask what the medal meant. But I was done needing their approval. Back in the field, I kept working. I treated everything: gunshot wounds, burns, even bad fevers. I earned the trust of the infantry soldiers. They used to joke that medics didn't do much, but now they respected me. They knew I was the one who could keep them alive. After just 1 year, I was promoted to sergeant, ahead of schedule. My commanding officer wrote in my file, "Sergeant Hill shows courage, leadership, and medical skill beyond her years." By the end of my 18-month deployment, I had saved 11 soldiers in combat. And each one of them mattered more than any award, any applause, or any forgotten "I'm proud of you" from home. While I was still in Afghanistan, I got a message from my mom. My brother Adam had graduated from law school, and they were throwing him a big party at home. They wanted me to come home on leave for the celebration. So I flew back. I hadn't been home in over a year. I had just come from the heat and danger of a war zone. I wore my dress uniform to the party. My ribbons were polished. My boots were clean. My hair was neat. I looked strong, proud, and ready to be seen. But no one really saw me. The house was filled with people, family, neighbors, old friends.
Everyone was talking about Adam,
His grades,
his new job.
his plans to move to New York. I stood near the edge of the room, holding a soda, feeling invisible. When my uncle tried to ask me about my service, my father stepped in quickly. "Lauren's doing fine with her army thing," he said, waving it off. "But today is about Adam. Did you know he graduated 3rd in his class?" Later, my mom walked by and looked at the medals on my uniform. "What are all those little things for?" she asked, like they were just pins from a craft store. "This one is for medical service in combat," I explained quietly. "And this one is for saving a soldier under fire." "Oh," she said. "Well, your cousin Megan just finished her residency at Johns Hopkins. That's a real doctor." That night, I flew back to base feeling more alone than I had in months. My body was in uniform, my mind full of battle wounds and memories, but to them, I was still just the disappointment. Not long after that, I got orders again. Another deployment. This one was going to a dangerous area where enemy fighters were very active. Everyone knew it would be harder than last time. The night before we left, I tried calling home one more time. "We're heading out tomorrow," I said. "It's pretty serious. I just wanted to hear your voices." "Don't try to be a hero," my dad said flatly. "The real heroes come home and do something useful with their lives." I swallowed hard. "I should go," I said. "Email when you can," my mom added. "Oh, and Adam's engagement party is next month. We'll send pictures." I hung up the phone in silence. That night, I wrote a letter to myself. I folded it up and kept it in my gear in case I didn't come back. "You chose a path with purpose," I wrote. "No matter what happens, your worth doesn't depend on their approval." 6 months into my second deployment, something unexpected happened. I was transferred to a special operations medical team, an elite unit that worked behind enemy lines. My commander had recommended me after seeing how I handled high-pressure missions. "Sergeant Hill," the officer said during the briefing, "this isn't regular combat medicine. You'll be working in small groups, in dangerous places, with no backup. You'll need to be smart, fast, and calm. Mistakes aren't allowed." I nodded. "Yes, sir." Training with the Special Ops team was the hardest thing I had ever done. We practiced saving lives while sleep-deprived, while blindfolded, while inside moving vehicles. We learned how to stitch wounds under pressure and how to drag people out of danger in total darkness. But they didn't care about my background. Not my name. Not my gender. Just my skills. And I proved myself. Then, one night in April, we got a mission briefing we'd never forget. 3 American aid workers had been captured in the mountains. They were likely to be moved, or killed, within 48 hours. Our job was to get them out. The plan was simple but dangerous. Fly in by helicopter, hit the target at night, and get out with the hostages. I would stay with the helicopter until the team secured the site. Then I would move in to give medical care. "These hostages might be weak or injured," I told the team. "They'll need help just to survive the trip back." We launched after midnight. It was pitch black. I sat in the helicopter, checking my gear again and again. My hands moved fast, but my mind was calm. I had done this before. I could do it again. But 20 minutes from the target, everything went wrong. Our lead helicopter took heavy fire. Warning lights flashed. The pilot shouted. We went down fast, crashing hard into a narrow valley. I hit the side of the cabin and blacked out for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes, smoke filled the air, and I heard people screaming. I crawled forward. The pilot, Major Sarah Reynolds, was bleeding badly from the head. The co-pilot, Lieutenant Jake Morris, had a broken arm twisted the wrong way. I grabbed my medical bag and started working. Captain Aaron Davis, our team leader, shouted over the noise. We have to move. Enemy fighters are coming. I stabilized the pilot's neck, wrapped her head wound, and gave her pain meds. I splinted Jake's arm and gave him a shot for the pain. Gunfire started popping all around us. We dragged both pilots behind rocks for cover. The second helicopter couldn't land. It was too risky. We were stuck. 12 of us, 2 badly injured, and 30 enemies closing in. And then the fighting began. The sound of gunfire was everywhere. It echoed off the rocks and trees. We had no time to panic. We had to fight. I stayed low behind the rocks, helping the wounded. I had to keep checking the pilot's pulse, stopping her bleeding, and watching her breathing. I gave fluids to the co-pilot and tried to keep him talking. But I could hear our team shouting over the radios. We were surrounded. Then another soldier, Specialist Marco Rivera, got hit. A bullet tore through his leg, and he dropped behind a log, screaming. Without thinking, I crawled through the dirt to get to him. Bullets kicked up sand around me, but I didn't stop. Put your hands here, I told him, guiding him to press on the wound while I pulled out a tourniquet. I wrapped it tight above his thigh. His face was pale. I gave him something for the pain and told him to stay with me. We were running out of bullets, running out of medical supplies, running out of time. Then our team leader, Captain Davis, shouted, "We need air support. Hill, you're the only one with a clear view. We need coordinates now." I crawled out again, this time even farther, just enough to see the enemy's main position. A bullet grazed my helmet. It could have killed me, but I stayed steady. I called in the airstrike with exact details. 5 minutes later, the sky roared. Fighter jets flew over and dropped bombs on the enemy hideout. The ground shook. Some of the gunfire stopped, but we were still in danger. As the sun started to rise, the situation got worse. Major Reynolds, the pilot, wasn't doing well. Her breathing slowed. Her color faded. I knew she wouldn't last much longer without better care.
And we had more wounded now.
3 more team members had been hit. Then it happened. A grenade exploded near us. I was thrown back. My leg burned. Shrapnel tore through my thigh, and I couldn't stand. Blood soaked my pants, but I didn't have time to think about the pain. Next to me, Sergeant Kyle Bennett was down. He had a chest wound and was barely breathing. Even though I was hurt, I dragged him to better cover, my legs screaming with every inch. I put a chest seal on his wound and started fluids. "Stay with me, Bennett," I whispered. "Your kids are waiting. You're not done yet."
I shielded his body with mine.
I wasn't going to let another man die, not today. By noon, we had lost contact with the rest of our team. The second helicopter couldn't reach us. The enemies were getting closer again. Captain Davis made a call. "Lauren, you take the worst wounded and go east," he said. "We'll create a distraction. The other helicopter will meet you near the ridge. It's your only shot." I didn't argue. I pulled together the injured, Reynolds, Bennett, Rivera, and tied sticks and shirts to make stretchers. Every step I took on my bleeding leg felt like fire, but I kept going. We moved through hills and woods all night. I kept checking their pulses, changing bandages, giving them medicine. I didn't sleep. I didn't stop. Finally, after 48 hours, we reached the extraction point. When I saw the helicopter flying toward us, I cried for the first time in years. Not because I was scared, but because we had made it. Once we were lifted out, I looked at my own leg for the first time. Shrapnel had torn muscle, but I had missed the major artery. It was bad, but not deadly. Back at the base, I found out the rest of our team had also survived, thanks to the distraction and the airstrike I had called in. But the mission had failed. The hostages were still with the enemy. I felt like I had failed them. But what I didn't know then was that the information I had given during the fight, the maps, the coordinates, the number of enemies, would lead to another rescue mission. 2 weeks later, the military used that data to free 27 people, not just the 3 original hostages, but 24 more who were also being held. Because of the information I gave under fire, dozens of people went home alive. But no one could know. The mission was classified. My name didn't appear in reports.
No ceremony.
No public praise. Just a note in my file and a medal placed quietly in my medical record. I was also awarded a Purple Heart for my injury. I called home from the hospital, hoping maybe now they would understand. I got hurt, I said softly. But I'm okay. They gave me a Purple Heart. My dad's response? So, will this affect your army contract? Maybe it's time to think about something else.
Just like that.
No, are you okay? No, we're proud of you. Only silence. It's just a leg wound, I said quietly. I'll be back on my feet in a few weeks. I hung up the phone. My physical wounds healed with time. The scar on my leg stayed, but I could walk again. The emotional scars, those took longer. Especially the guilt. I had done everything I could. I had saved lives. But Sergeant Bennett died weeks later from his injuries. He died on my watch. Even now, I sometimes wake up hearing his voice. I still wonder if I could have done more. But in my heart, I know I gave everything I had. And that has to be enough. After I recovered from my leg injury, the Army gave me 30 days of medical leave. I had healed on the outside, but inside, I wasn't okay. I was having trouble sleeping. Loud noises made me jump. Sometimes I'd stop breathing for a moment, remembering the sound of gunfire or the feeling of blood on my hands. I couldn't talk about it, not even in therapy. Every time someone asked, "What happened out there?" all I could say was, "I'm not allowed to talk about it." Because the mission was still classified. Even the therapist on base didn't know the full story. So I kept it inside, trying to carry it on my own. During that leave, I went home again. I hoped maybe things would be different now. After everything I'd done. After the medal. After being injured. Maybe this time they'd see me. But nothing had changed. When I arrived at the house, my mom looked surprised. "Oh, we thought you were coming tomorrow." There were balloons and cake on the table. My brother Adam was there with his fiancée Rachel, and the family was throwing them a celebration. I had told them I was arriving that day. They had just forgotten. "It's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm happy to meet Rachel." We sat down for dinner. The room filled with laughter and stories, but not about me. They talked about Adam's job, his wedding plans, their future house. No one asked how I was doing. Only Rachel seemed interested. She leaned over and asked, "You're in the Army, right? What's it like?" But before I could answer, my father jumped in. "Lauren's doing a temporary military job," he said, waving his hand. "Nothing exciting like law work." Rachel looked confused, but nodded politely. Then she noticed the medal on my chest. "What's that one for?" she asked. My mom rolled her eyes. "Oh, that? She got that for a small injury during training or something. The Army gives medals for everything these days." I stared at her in shock. "It wasn't training," I said quietly. "That's a Purple Heart. It's given when a soldier is wounded in battle." Adam laughed. "Come on, Lauren. You're not in combat. You're like a nurse, right? What did you do? Trip over a rock?" And just like that, something inside me broke. I stood up slowly, placing both hands on the table to hide how much they were shaking. "I was shot at," I said, my voice calm but firm. "A grenade exploded near me. I was wounded while pulling injured teammates out of fire. I held a soldier's hand while he died." The room went silent. No one spoke. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. "Well, if you had gone to medical school like we hoped, you'd be saving lives in a real hospital by now. Not playing war hero." "Playing," I repeated. The word felt sharp. "You think I'm playing?" My mom jumped in. What your father means is we wanted something more respectable, like your cousin Megan. Yes, I said. You've mentioned her 47 times since I joined the army. Adam laughed. Touchy, huh? Look, everyone knows you joined the military because you couldn't keep up in school. No shame in that. I looked at them, my father, my mother, my brother, and for the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt angry and awake. In the past 5 years, I said, I've saved more lives than you can imagine. I've done emergency surgeries in the middle of firefights. I've treated soldiers with nothing but basic supplies. I've earned the respect of some of the best men and women in uniform. I paused. But none of you ever asked. Not once. My mom looked away. My father stayed quiet. Adam opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Do you even tell people what I do? I asked. Or, do you pretend I don't exist? My dad looked at me, his face cold. The military is a fine short-term job, but we just always expected more.
More.
That word hit me like a slap. I've been blown up. I've dragged bleeding men through bullets. I've written letters to their families after they died in my arms. And you, I pointed at them. You think Adam's desk job makes him the hero. You've always been the disappointment, my father said quietly. This army stuff, it's just your way of running from that. That was it. I stood up. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I walked out of the house. My mom called after me, Lauren, come back. Don't be dramatic. But I kept walking. I got in my rental car, parked beside their perfect garden and expensive cars, and I let the tears come. I broke down, sobbing into the steering wheel, shaking from the weight of everything they had never understood. My phone buzzed. It was Staff Sergeant Monica Taylor, one of my closest friends in the unit. Hey, Hill, she said. Just checking in. How's the leg? How's the family visit? I couldn't answer. She heard me crying and didn't ask questions. I'm coming to get you, she said right away. Text me the address. Don't move. 2 hours later, she picked me up from the hotel I had checked into after leaving the house. She brought snacks and stayed the night with me, sitting quietly as I finally told someone everything: the mission, the hurt, the silence, the rejection. She held my hand and said something I'll never forget. Your worth isn't decided by the people who don't see you. It's measured by the lives you've saved and the people who trust you. And that night, I finally believed it. After I left my parents' house and stayed with Monica, something inside me changed. I stopped waiting for their approval. I stopped hoping they would call. I had spent years trying to make them proud, thinking that one day they'd finally see me. But they never would. And that was their loss, not mine. I went back to my base and focused on my recovery. My leg was healing well, and the doctors said I could return to active duty within 2 months. But during that time, something unexpected happened. I got a letter. Not from my parents. It was from the Department of Defense. At first, I thought it was just another update about my medical records or service history. But as I read the letter, my hands started shaking. It said I had been nominated for the Silver Star. That's the 3rd highest military decoration for valor. I read the words again and again. They had reviewed the classified mission reports. My radio call for the airstrike, my care of the wounded, the way I led the injured soldiers to safety, everything had been noted. And even though the mission itself was still officially secret, the military had decided that my actions needed to be recognized. I was speechless. That night, I sat on my bunk and thought about everything I had been through. The bullets, the blood, the pain, the silence from my family, the disrespect, the names they called me, the way they laughed. And now, the U.S. government was telling me, we see you. We remember what you did. And we are proud. 2 weeks later, I received another letter, this time from a national veterans organization. They wanted to honor me at their annual Heroes Gala in Washington, D.C. I had been chosen as a special guest. My name, my rank, my picture, it would be printed in their program and read aloud on stage. They even offered to fly out 2 family members to attend the event with me. I stared at that part of the invitation for a long time. At first, I thought of inviting my parents, Maybe this would be the moment they would change. Maybe they'd finally realize what I had become. But then I remembered how they looked at me when I stood at their dinner table with a purple heart on my chest. I remembered the way they dismissed my pain, laughed at my mettle, told me I wasn't enough. So instead, I called Monica.
Hey, I said.
What are you doing on the 12th of next month? Why? She asked. Because I need someone to sit beside me when they call my name at a fancy veterans event. She laughed. I'll wear a dress, but only if it has pockets. I smiled. Deal. The night of the gala came. The hotel ballroom was packed with people in gowns and dress uniforms. Journalists, military leaders, veterans, and their families filled the room. I wore my formal uniform, polished boots, and every medal I had earned, one by one, stitched over my heart. When they called my name, the room applauded. I stood up, walked slowly to the stage. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the lesser child or the disappointment. I felt like Lauryn Hill, U.S. Army combat medic, Silver Star nominee, and someone who had earned her place, not through words, but through action. As I stood at the microphone, I spoke clearly. I didn't join the army to get praise or medals. I joined to serve. I've seen the worst of war and the best of people. I've held lives in my hands and watched some slip away. And I've done it all quietly, without expecting anyone to clap. But today I'm proud, not because I'm being honored, but because I finally believe I deserve to be. The room was silent for a moment. Then it rose in applause. Afterward, people came up to thank me. Veterans shared their own stories. A mother hugged me and said, "You saved someone's son. Thank you." Later that evening, Monica and I stood outside the hotel, looking up at the stars. "You looked like a general up there," she said. "I felt like myself," I said. And that was the truth. The next day, a picture of the event was shared on the organization's website. I was standing tall on the stage, uniform perfect, medals shining. Someone sent the link to my parents. I know this because 3 days later, my father left me a voicemail. It was short. He said, "Saw the photo. Didn't know you were doing all that. I guess, good job." I never called him back. I didn't need to, because by then, I understood something I had never believed before. You don't need your family's praise to be proud of who you are. Sometimes you build your own pride. A few months later, I got orders to return overseas. This time, it wasn't a combat mission, it was a support deployment. I would be helping train local medics, supporting local clinics, and offering aid in disaster-affected areas. It felt different. Less pressure, but still meaningful. Before I left, I visited the gravesite of one of the soldiers I couldn't save during that secret mission. His name was Private Mark Evans. He was just 22 years old. Quiet, kind, and always the first to volunteer. He had died trying to protect another soldier, and I had been the one to close his eyes. I brought flowers to his grave and sat down on the grass beside him. "Hey, Mark," I said quietly. "I'm still here. I'm still trying." The wind blew softly through the trees. "I wish your parents could have seen how brave you were. I wish someone had told them what you did. But I promise you, I'll never let your name be forgotten." I sat with him for a long time. No music. No speeches. Just silence and peace. That was the first time I let go of the guilt. I realized I had done everything I could. And even if I couldn't save everyone, I had tried with my whole heart. That had to mean something. When I flew out for the new deployment, Monica hugged me at the airport. "You're gonna change lives again," she said. "Just like you always do." I smiled. "You're the only one who's ever said that to me." "Well," she said, "then I'll keep saying it." The work on this deployment was different from anything I'd done before. We weren't under fire. We were building things literally. We set up small clinics, treated sick kids, trained local women to give first aid in their villages. I was teaching, not just patching up wounds. I was helping people build their own strength. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from proving anything. Free from chasing my parents' love. Free from hiding what I had seen. I started writing about my experiences. Not in a book, not for fame, just in a simple journal. Page after page, I poured out the things I had held inside for years.
The pain.
The fear. The people I had lost. The people I had saved. The faces that still lived in my memory. And slowly, I began to heal. One day, after a long shift at a village clinic, I sat under a tree with a young girl named Lena. She had helped me all day, carrying supplies, translating for patients, even cleaning wounds. "You are a strong woman," she said. I looked at her and smiled. "So are you." She held up my stethoscope and asked, "Can I be like you when I grow up?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. "You already are." That moment stayed with me. Not because of what she said, but because I saw myself in her. Young, full of hope, wanting to help, wanting to matter. It made me think, maybe the legacy I leave behind won't be medals or speeches. Maybe it'll be people like Lena. People I helped lift up. And maybe that's enough. When the deployment ended, I returned home. Not to my parents' house, but to my own apartment near the base. It was small, but it was mine. A quiet place, filled with soft light and photos of the people I had served with. People who understood me. People who had my back. One of the first things I did when I returned was visit a local high school where students were writing letters to service members. I was invited to speak. I almost said no. I wasn't sure anyone really wanted to hear what I had to say. But I went anyway. I stood in front of a group of teenagers, nervous and fidgeting in their chairs. I took a deep breath and said, "My name is Lauren Hill. I'm a combat medic in the U.S. Army. I've been to war. I've saved lives. I've also lost people. But through all of it, I've learned something important. You don't need anyone's permission to be proud of who you are. You just need to do what's right and keep going, even when it's hard." The room was silent. Then one girl raised her hand. She asked, "Did your family ever say sorry?" I smiled sadly. "No," I said. But I stopped waiting for them to. That day, I walked out of the school and realized something. I had become the kind of person I wished I had growing up. Someone strong. Someone kind. Someone who kept going no matter what. It's been almost 10 years since that secret mission changed everything. I still remember it clearly, every sound, every scream, every heartbeat. I remember the blood on my hands, the weight of the wounded soldier I carried, and the voice in my ear telling me the helicopter wasn't coming. But more than all that, I remember how alone I felt after. Not because of war, but because of my family. That pain used to burn like fire. But now it's quiet. A scar that reminds me of where I've been, not something that controls me. A few months ago, I received a call from the Pentagon. They were organizing a private ceremony, something they had started doing for select veterans who served in Black Ops missions. It wasn't public, but it was official. They were giving me the Medal of Honor. My hands trembled when I hung up the phone. I didn't cry. I didn't jump or shout. I just sat in silence and let it sink in. All those years in the shadows. All those people who told me I wasn't good enough. All the times my own parents rolled their eyes at my service. They were all wrong. The ceremony was held in a small hall inside a secured military facility in Arlington, Virginia. There weren't cameras or reporters. Just a few high-ranking officers, a chaplain, a handful of other honorees, and people we trusted. I wore my dress uniform, polished my boots the night before. Monica came with me. She held my hand while I walked up to receive the medal. When the general pinned it to my chest, he looked me in the eye and said, "Sergeant Hill, we are proud to call you one of the bravest medics this country has ever seen." And this time, I believed him. Afterward, Monica and I went to a quiet cafe, just the two of us. We didn't talk about the ceremony. We didn't talk about my parents. We just laughed, drank coffee, and sat like old friends who had survived the storm together. Later that night, I looked at myself in the mirror. Not just the uniform or the medal, but me. My eyes had changed. Not colder. Not harder. Just stronger. I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone, not my father, not my mother, not even the world. I had survived war. I had survived being forgotten. I had saved lives. I had faced death. And still, I stood. A few weeks after the ceremony, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my dad. The envelope was plain. No return address. Inside was a short note, written in his usual block handwriting. Lauren. I saw the article in the Veterans Journal. I didn't know.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I folded it, slid it back into the envelope, and put it in a box under my bed. I didn't need an apology anymore. I wasn't angry.
I just didn't feel anything.
Because my story was never about them.
It was always about me.
About choosing to keep going when no one believed in me. About standing back up when even family turned away. About finding strength in silence and purpose in service. Today, I work with a nonprofit that supports wounded veterans. I speak at schools, help with training programs, and mentor young medics just entering the field. I live in a small house in Fairfax, Virginia. Quiet street. Flower boxes on the windows. There's a dog named Baxter who greets me at the door every day with his tail wagging. Sometimes I sit on the porch with my journal, writing the next chapter of my life. Because it's not over. I'm not done. Not yet. And if you're reading this, if you've ever felt invisible, unworthy, unloved, please hear me. You matter.
Even when they don't say it.
Even when they try to erase you. You matter. You are not your family's opinion. You are not your past. You are what you do, what you survive, and what you become. And me? I'm Lauren Hill, U.S. Army Combat Medic. Silver Star. Medal of Honor. Daughter of Silence. But now a voice for others. And I will never be invisible again.